2. Can I get a volunteer who would like to do our invocation?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, Lord, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for all the many ways you bless us, the many ways you bless our community and our county, Lord God. Lord, we just pray, as we all often do, Lord God, just for your wisdom and your guidance in everything that we do, every decision that's made on behalf of our community. Lord, we want to put you first in everything that we do, every thought, every action, every vote. Lord God, just guide us and direct us, because we are so limited in our knowledge, but you are so infinite in yours. So we want to yield to you, the knower of all things. Help us today to be effective in this meeting, to get the work done that needs to be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Would you please stand with me so we can do pledge? U.S. flag first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag? On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Okay, has everyone had a chance to take a look at the consent agenda? And let's start, first of all, with the minutes from February the 9th. Do you have any changes you saw?
Yeah, I sent a couple of typo corrections, and then Jeff and I were trying to discuss the. There's a comment in there was regarding our sales tax revenue, or excuse me, our fund balance increasing by $61 million, and I don't think that's what he was trying to say.
No, I'm not quite sure after looking. I'm not sure what I was trying to say at all. So I would just propose that we strike that sentence out of the deal. I was going back looking at those numbers from last month. I'm not really sure I remember what that was relating to.
With those corrections, I would move for approval of the, what is it?
February 9th?
February 9th.
Second. I have a motion, Mr. Boutin, have a second from Dr. Kirk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. That brings us to the minutes for February 21st.
Move for approval as presented.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Boutin.
Second.
Second from Mr. Russell. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. This brings us to our regular agenda. We'll just jump right into the contractors' reports. But first of all, let me remind everybody that this is an open meeting, and any member of the public may address the ODC board regarding any of the agenda items either before or during the consideration of that item. So with that being said, we'll jump into our contractors' reports, and let's start with the Economic Development Department. Mr. Mansky. We call him Mr. Mansky with the broken wing.
It's getting better. Good afternoon. You'll find on page 1 after the various minutes and the agenda, the Economic Development Activity Report. And I will tell you, sometimes I get back to the seat and I sit down, I'm like, oh, I missed the last page, or I missed this page. So I'm going to try to go through everything here with y'all today without taking too long. The active ones right now for us on the first page, Project Sarah, I think it's Sarah Gia Bess. That's a brand new one, and that site consultant actually brought, I talked to him Monday morning. That was about the only thing I did Monday morning. I was off that day. But I talked to him on the phone at length, and he's got 2 other projects that he's interested in putting in Ector County. And so I've got him coming to town next Thursday and Friday. And these are all significant projects, and at least one of them has a B after the number, monetarily speaking. And so we're excited about that. Project Flow, that is actually something Tracy's working on, but you can see there it's expansion to manufacturing flow control products, CapEx, which isn't bad, $3.46 million. The good thing on that one, it's going to retain 8 full-time jobs and add 22 new ones. And a lot of hers are really good. Those are kind of the low-hanging fruit. Tracy, as you know, is our Director of Business Retention and Expansion. And so she goes out, sets up meetings, meets with people. And I'll tell you, she shared with me, it can be frustrating because of folks in Odessa. Sometimes you have a company and it's a dad running it and he's getting ready to hand it over to his son, and she's made 10 phone calls, or he's getting ready to hand it over to his son, and she's made 10 phone calls to get the meeting along, get it set up, everything, and then she shows up, comes in the office, and they're out at the country club playing golf. And so then she has to start all over again. It's kind of like when we're trying to get the agreements turned in. People don't want to do that. But that's some of the stuff we're running into. Project Castle, you see that one, we brought that up before. Project Affiliate, that's a solar project. It went away for a while, actually at our request, and now it's back. I've met with the county judge since he is new and filled him in on it, and supposed to meet with the county attorney next week to get that one back on the agenda. They're going to be requesting a 312 from the county, Odessa College, and the hospital district. And it's not a lot of jobs, but it's a good CapEx. So when they go on the payrolls, I'll give you an example of an abatement they would like to see. Whether or not they get that, I don't know, but it just gives you an idea what some of these companies come in and ask for. 10-year abatement, 5 years at 100%, year 6, 90, year 7, 80, year 8, 70, so you get and it would wind up year 10 at 50, and then excluding depreciation, everything is then on the tax rolls. And so most of these projects right now, these big ones, are going out into West Ector County, where right now all they're getting is an ag exemption.
What's the difference between a 312 and a 313? I'm not familiar with the 312.
312 is just a regular abatement, and that's what the taxing entities outside of the school district are allowed to do. The 313, which went away December 31st at midnight, that is the state allows the school district to put a cap on the property value. And so because schools, they have the highest tax rate in every community in the state, and so depending on the size and capex of the project, schools can put a cap for up to 10 years for anything from 10 million to 100 million. And give you an example, Nacero, because it's a very large project, big heavy capex, I believe they're at 100 million. And then if it's under, if it's a much smaller project, and I think the minimum to participate in 313 back in the day was it needed to have $100 million capex.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. I think the original intent of the 313 was to allow an abatement for schools to do an abatement, because there was a provision that said schools could not do that, and I think the legislature was trying to protect the revenue associated with schools and education. So it was a mechanism to allow them to do that.
Yeah, the schools were the only ones not participating for a period of time, and they're the highest property tax. And so the state realized for a while there no one was bringing mega projects to Texas for a period of time. And I don't know who came up with it. They came up with the 313. I will tell you, right now that's the biggest discussion going on in Austin. There's House Bill 5, which may wind up being a different type of 313. And then there was a state rep from South Texas who introduced a new 313, which is actually just the old 313. I don't think everybody's going to go with the old 313. I think what they're going to wind up doing is using House Bill 5, and I forgot what that was, Strong Texas, Strong Jobs or something. They're going to debate some of the stuff in that bill, and out of it, the things that people really didn't like about the 313 will be in that. And so, but there's a lot of groups, unions, things of that nature, coincidentally, or not coincidentally, incidentally now, there's a number of religious groups that have really come out heavily against the 313. And were big, especially around Central Texas and the Austin area, they were big convincing the legislature to sunset that thing. But it's going to be a big debate between now and the end of May. I think I've heard enough that they're going to come up with something, because Texas is in the 40s on property tax and school districts are the highest. So, and when you want to come in and put something over $1 billion, it's a lot of money.
What's kind of your thought, Tom, on things like, because there's a difference, I know, like, I think like the Samsung plant that's going in Austin, I mean, that's a huge capex, but it's also a huge number of jobs that will be associated with that chip factory once it comes online. You know, what we've seen a lot of in Ector County is we have some pretty big capex, but we're abating a lot of it. But just like this thing, we're talking 3 to 5 permanent jobs. I mean, what's your thought? Are those projects truly worth pursuing, considering that we're not getting much tax revenue, and we're certainly not getting it for a good while, and we're looking at a very small number of potential jobs? I mean, I don't know what this project's, that first one was, the one funny name, Sargio, but I mean, they're looking at $180 million capex, but you know, it's 1 to 2 jobs if that's correct. I mean, that you know, it kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit about some of those projects. I mean, do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, on solar, I can get real specific because I've talked to 3 other companies and introduced the idea to them. There's a deal called behind the meter, and when you have for instance, the solar project out there right now, Oberon, when they established themselves in West Ector County, they had a customer, I believe, and I may be speaking out of turn, but I believe they came in with a customer or two in mind that they're helping with their energy costs. Ophelia down here at the bottom, they don't have a customer. So they're either going to put everything they produce into the grid or reach out to people. Lithium that y'all got to meet with in December, I brought it up with him, and he was aware of the process. He didn't know we had a solar facility out there, or solar farm. He said, you know, we can save 30 to 40% on our electrical costs. And that's really what we need to hop on a plane and come to Odessa. And we contacted the people with Ophelia. They flew out here from California on their own nickel. I paid for their hotel room. But they came out here and they met for 3 hours with these people. And really helped our discussion. And so I'm talking to 3 people right now that have a big time interest in putting their facility behind the meter to save their electrical costs.
Okay. And that definitely changes the dynamic of, you know, the solar plant itself may not be that great of a deal, but it may attract other.
It's a draw.
Yeah, draw.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then once we're getting Nacero up and going, yesterday and Monday, I was on the phone with NextEra, which you probably saw where Nacero contracted with them to come in with a solar farm that would be on their property and basically put Nacero behind the meter. And so, you know, eventually down the road, you're going to get property tax from that. But we've tried to turn these things into, hey, there's a reason these guys are out here. Why don't you come out here and technically they put their power into the grid anyways, but then they can provide that power credit to these companies. And so they become a draw for us. And there's really nothing else out there. So,
Can I make a comment, Jeff? I think we should never forget, you know, eventually we're going to get those taxes. I mean, the abatement is short term, relatively speaking. And by expanding the tax base, then we are able to hold taxes lower for residents. And I think that was one of the things, and not so subject to the ups and downs in the oil field if it's diversified. So those are the things I think about when it comes to tax abatements. It's obviously a tool we use to attract businesses and certainly to incentivize local expansions. it's a tool that we use to compete with other areas, and because they're basically using the same tool that we are. So, but how do you justify it? Well, I think expanding the tax base makes it easier on the rest of the taxpayers, and certainly softens some of those ups and downs with regard to the oil and gas business.
I guess part of the reason behind that question was, I've been reading recently of some of the wind farms, not so much solar, but wind farms. And basically what is happening in areas is we've had huge wind farms, but as the abatements go away, we've literally had some companies that have just literally abandoned their windmills. And they were in, XYZ Corporation, LLC number 1, number 2, number 3, they just set them up in these LLCs. So they're just basically walking away and bankrupting the LLC, and somebody, leaving someone with the work to do on what to do with broken windmills.
And I guess that's the way that, part of that is because the government subsidies is the only way that makes those work.
Right. Well, part of it too has been some of my concern after having conversations with the appraisal district of, we may have companies come in like this, and they've got $180 million CapEx, but they set their depreciation over 10 years to coincide with the tax abatement. So that basically when you get down to 10 years and they're going to start, really paying their taxes, they've depreciated everything down so much that it's nowhere near $180 million value. As a matter of fact, it's only normally 10 to 15% of the value. So is it still some of the tax base? Yes, but what we're seeing in a lot of cases is that tax burden is getting transferred to the residential side.
Well, that's true, the personal property piece of the ad valorem taxes, but the improvements to the real property, you can't depreciate those at that high of a rate.
Well, take this for the solar farm, for example.
Mm-hmm.
The $180 million.
It's going to be mostly personal property.
You got 90% of it's going to be this. So we got to be concerned with that. That's one of the reasons I started talking about when we're looking at some of our grants that are heavily weighted on the capital side. And I agree with you. If a lot of it's plant and property that really isn't going to depreciate, it's not that big a deal. But from what the appraisal district's telling me is most of these companies know the game better than anybody, and so they'll come in and get our grants and abatements and stuff based on a big CapEx, but the second it's done, they're down there filing lawsuits to drop the value of all of that stuff so they're not having to pay the taxes on it. And so if we on our side can help on the contract side, which is a question that hopefully you can help with, is, and again, this isn't about telling the appraisal district how to value property. If the appraisal district says it depreciated by 70% in a year, then it depreciated by 70% in a year. It's about not having our grantees tell us how much it depreciated.
Some of that too, though, is going to tie to the Internal Revenue Code and the amount of accelerated depreciation that a company's allowed to take on their personal property on the basis of the tax code. They're not going to be able to exceed that, but I don't think that any company's going to contract to not take the most advantage of whatever Internal Revenue Code depreciation that they can to offset. I hear what you're saying. I'm just not sure what the solution is.
Well, it'd be nice to me to have some kind of presentation by the appraisal district regarding what are the circumstances that this has occurred, whereby we were under the impression we're going to collect X number of dollars in taxes and we don't actually do that.
And I think it'd be good to have Peggy at that conversation as a CPA, because she can talk to us about what the Internal Revenue Code allows and what, I don't think there's anybody in this room who for their own business wouldn't take advantage of as much depreciation as they're legally allowed to, so.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between market value and book value. You're talking about book value for taxation. I can sit there and depreciate my roof on my building over 20 years. My property value doesn't change because my roof is depreciating really on my taxes. And we use some accelerated depreciation on some major components like that. But
no, but we're talking about, say, a company that has equipment and you're supposed to render annually your value to the appraisal district for the personal property taxes. And that equipment, if you had a tractor, you'd take as much, you're not going to depreciate a tractor over 20 years. You're going to take as much depreciation as you can in the first 5 years until that's depreciated to zero, because you're allowed to under the tax code. And the bottom line is when you render to the ECAD, I mean, that may well be the fair market value, rather than just book on that type of equipment.
And I agree with that, but at the same time, it goes along just with what David's saying, We're giving these grants to encourage something. It's either
Sure.
jobs or capital investment that goes back to the base to perpetuate what we're doing. So if we're creating 2 jobs, and of course, when you look at the matrix, $180 million CapEx is going to be a big grant, no matter what. So, when you divide that among the jobs, because it gets depreciated so fast that by the time they're paying property taxes, we're not paying property taxes, what are we truly getting? So the whole discussion, we really need to look into
Sure,
that when we're
I
looking at
agree.
the grant to figure out what we're going
I
to do.
think that the 2 things that we have going for us there are that, number one, we're not required to give what the matrix says.
Correct.
So if somebody comes in and they're applying for a capital investment grant on the basis of equipment, we know up front that that's not going to be, we're not going to get paid back on that like we would want. And so that's something for us to keep in mind. We control all of that. And when those applications come in, we do see this much is going to equipment, this much is going to capital improvements and buildings. And I think that it's fair for us to make the determination that our grants are going to be based on more permanent investment in the community. And I don't want to get caught in the weeds of trying to contract with people as to how they can take their depreciation on their equipment. I think that we just need to focus on what we're tying our grants to, what we're incentivizing. I think those permanent investments that you do have to take at least 20 years or longer to depreciate is where we need to focus our attention.
Yeah, I think we're in 100% agreement on that.
I had a question, Tom and Master can help. We're talking about abatements. We don't do it here.
Correct.
We grant money. But, so, I think our benefit, we're granting money for equipment, personnel, so capitalization. We need to know what the useful life of these products, when we talk about solar, if it's only a 10-year or 15-year, what's the useful life after the abatement? If they're zeroed out or depreciation, what's the ratio between useful life and abatement? Where are we, what would we be left with, say, 15 years down the road or 20 years at those benchmark numbers?
That's a very good question. 2 things. One, and that may be a question we add to the agreement. 2, I'd be happy to get ECAD here next meeting to address
Great.
your issues.
idea, David.
But that's a good question because let us know how long. Now, like working with GCC, Project Frost, which is I think right below Project Lithium. They came right up front. They said, at a minimum, this is going to add 50 years to our lifespan. Of course, they got a quarry out there. They want to stay out there forever.
Right.
But on something like solar, that's a very good question. How long do you expect these to
Windmills, maybe 15 years, and they're dumping all the blades falling off of them, and they leave it to the counties to go clean it up, you know what I'm saying? And disposal of millions of dollars on some of them. And you go by and see a whole plateau that's shut down and you got a new one running over here. It's not that they're not needing to run it, it's that they're all broken and they've moved over to a different mountaintop. So.
And a question on that, I know since I've been here 13 months, Tracy, have you been approached by windmill companies? The good thing is we don't really get approached by them. Solar, we get some.
Yeah.
Not much lately, but last summer, Bitcoin. Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
I take 3 calls a day. There's a lot of stuff we get calls on that we will run some traps on. We're not even bringing to y'all because you got a lot more stuff to deal with than that. But last summer, Bitcoin was everywhere. Summer 22.
Yeah.
And boy, I'll tell you what, that dropped off the face of the earth. But the concerns we had about them, when they show us pictures of their setup, it looks like something that could be moved easily somewhere else. They're loud. There's a reason they want to be out in the middle of nowhere. It's typically one employee at a computer out in the middle of nowhere. And so, there were a lot of things. And we checked with other economic development organizations. Do y'all like those? And I've got some friends that go after them because of the CapEx. you know, I know Encore told us they don't love them. They use a lot of electricity. I mean, a ton. So,
Well, they're even buying depleted wells that still have gas on there and using the gas to generate electricity. And so they're advertising well sites with defunct wells that still have a lot of gas that would have to be flared instead of flaring it, using it for generating power for mining. So,
and I'll give you a quick example on two sides to every story, because I still don't know who's right or who's wrong. But when you talk about the depreciation and everything, one of our companies that located out in West Hector County, solar, contested their property tax rate year one, and they're getting an abatement. And so I walked into a commissioner's court meeting regarding another project, and we described it as well as we could to the commissioner's court, and then they invited me to let our guests leave. And I had no idea what I was walking into. Because one, I didn't know that company contested that. You're bringing us another one? And so, you know, they told me why they were upset and this and that. And then I went back to my office and, you know, Phil, what the heck? And he said, well, let me come down and talk to you. And he came down and he brought a whole bunch of pictures of their equipment in boxes. They had developed about 30% of their site, and they had the rest of their solar stuff in boxes. They were in the middle of doing everything, and they got a full tax deal the first year, a full bill. And I think somebody told me, well, yeah, they still had the stuff even though they weren't using it. And so we had a big debate back and forth on, well, why are you going in charging 100% when they're not technically in business yet? You know, we probably need to address that through the start date of the abatement or something. But, you know, I went back to the county and said, well, here's what they're telling me. And I approached it from how do we work together on all of this. And so, you know, you never know. And I couldn't tell you who's right on that one. I've got my opinions, but, you know, the media's here and I'm not going to share them. But, you know, we hear all sorts of stuff out there.
yeah.
David, I have a question for you in your institutional memory.
It's 48 hours.
Oh, this should be interesting.
Am I wrong in remembering that not so very long ago, ODC would not make a capital investment grant to somebody who was also receiving an abatement? And I think that it was Wes that drove crazy, because he said it really took one of the tools out of his toolbox. But wasn't there a time that was the situation?
There's some wording in there.
I do think that at one time that was the case, but
Yeah.
I think that we overcame that. And now, in fact, I remember looking at some language and made a suggestion that we change that language to say may not be eligible for, so that we have discretion as to whether or not we want to provide grant funds in addition to an abatement. You know, and I think it all typically hinges on, you know, what's the competitive environment look like? You know, how much do we want this expansion or relocation? You know, how much do we want the jobs? How much do we want the capital investment? And that gives us the flexibility to do that. But I do believe at one time that was accurate.
I agree, that wording should be in there to give us.
And I'll give you my opinion on that one. You wouldn't want to totally do away with it, because if you have the right project, the right jobs, the right CapEx, you guys are all excited about it, and you need that one last thing to get it across the finish line, God, we'd love to give you abatement, but since we're going to give you this grant, we can't. You don't want to not have that option.
As I recall, I think that was Wes's argument that we all found compelling, that resulted in that change.
Correct.
I agree with Wes on something. So, real briefly, I know I've gone long. Just a couple more to touch on Project Frost. You guys approved that, I think, 2 meetings ago. It's moving along. The city finished their agreement. It has been sent to those guys, and they're reviewing it as we speak, hopefully. Project Legion, that is the big boy. I think we passed CTV. Let me go back here Let's see. Project Legion is CTV's big brother. CTV's on 3. I'll get to that in a second. But Legion is moving again. I met with the county judge on that one also, and they're supposed to be in town in the next 2.5 weeks. They were coming in town to meet with the school district anyways. They've already been approved for 313. That was last year. And that's a good example. That's a potentially $24 billion investment. And without the 313, they wouldn't be in Texas if they come.
At what level were they approved at, local or in Austin? They were approved in Austin?
Well, they made it through the entire process. It's a weird deal. You have to go to the school district first and get the school district to say, yes, we approve you applying for this. And then they put the application together, submit it in Austin. If Austin agrees to it, they have to come back to the school district, and the school district reviews what Austin did. And if all that passes, the school board passes it, and then it moves forward. One of the complaints on that deal with people opposing 313 is how the school districts handled it. The length you could extend them out. Like this one could potentially, because it's they're telling us 7 builds, which each build has so many direct air capture units in it. They're saying that because 24 billion, they can't spend that kind of cash overnight. So they're talking 2034 could be the final. So they could be out there for years with lots of construction workers. But I can tell you that one could potentially be what they're bringing to town, the technology and the things we've talked to other people about that may follow it. Like some of y'all heard about that net power. That could be kind of a generational change for Ector County and where we take stuff in the future. I mean, it could really be huge for us. Which leads me to CTV on page 3. I was having a meeting with representatives over at the Marriott. CTV, which the company's called 1.5, the worst kept secret in the state is Oxy is a big investor in 1.5. They're planning their groundbreaking, and we'll get you guys information on April 28th out at the site. I talked to an individual yesterday. They're pouring the asphalt for the road that they're building to the site as we speak. They're coming in from the north. And Marriott said they've already got lots of rooms booked. CTV told us they're flying in 300 people from Houston.
Wow.
And so, and a gentleman at the Marriott said, yeah, I believe that. And so, because they're also going to have some things over at the Marriott too. They're really happy. They said, y'all keep bringing them in. But that's going to be a great deal for us. Let me see, beyond that, I'm just going to move back into some of the other items, if y'all don't mind. And I will tell you, we talk to Nacero all the time. They're still working hard to get here. Nobody wants to be here more than they do. I will tell you that. And anything we can do, I told there was something that Nacero needed to change with their 313 because of how they did the application. And I met with Wes last week, and they were supposed to have a meeting this week in Austin with the state comptroller's office. I think it's been pushed to next week. And I told him, I said, you know what, the school district supports it. Odessa College, Hospital District, ODC, County. I said, I'll wait for you to hear from you, but if we need to bring a delegation down to Austin after you guys are done to let them know how important this is to the community, we're low buses. And so they're pushing hard, and I told them the community's ready to push hard for them. So, and then he said, don't ask me again what the groundbreaking is. Below that, you'll see local business retention expansion. Those are some of the companies that were visited in the last month. I plan on getting out more now that I'm healing. And so this is probably the most I've spent in my office since I've been here the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I really haven't left that much. After that, you'll see our partner visits, trying to get out. And a lot of it is just talking. Chris Crow's a good example. When he first became chair of the board here, he talked to me about 3 companies he's talking to. And I said, sick me on them. And so sometimes you don't even realize you're talking to a company that may want to increase their presence here. But if you have any inkling of that, give me a call. We play it cool. We're not going to, if you want us not to mention your name, or if you want us to bring roses to them, I mean, we're going to do what's appropriate to get them talking and let them know we can support them. Moving on beyond that, you'll see our Odessa economic indicators. And then past that, I think, is our social media. And if you notice on there, we've added LinkedIn. It's not busy yet, but working with our outstanding marketing group, we plan on increasing our social media presence. And I know she's already worked with a web page designer, and she's got them in line. And it was funny when she called me, she said, have you heard of Golden Shovel? And I said, well, yeah, I use them to they built our page in Palestine. Now, if you go back to your office and pull up Palestine Economic Development, the page is not as nice as it used to be.
Just saying.
But in 2015, when we finished it, for a city that size, it was a darn good page. So that'll tell you your Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Most of them are growing, and we're going to continue to work on that. And with that, I think Chris wants me off the stage so he can talk. I'll be happy to answer any other questions for us today. Anything?
Questions for Tom?
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. It's Kristen.
Thank you, guys. First of all, we have our contract in place, so you will start seeing our written report starting next month. In the meantime, we've been emailing the committee. Come on, Brittany. Sorry. We've been emailing the committee just to keep them updated on everything that we're doing. We'll continue to do that. There's a lot at play right now, and so we'll probably have another meeting once I have a few more things to show. A couple of things we've done since the last meeting. We've established a brand guidelines and style guide. We really thought that was important, especially as if we're giving files out, if we're asking people to help cross-promote us, anything that we're doing, we just want to make sure that it looks the way we want it to look. So that has been established. I think I mentioned last time about the I-20 board. I was hoping to know before, so it may not, we just found this out yesterday, it may not be up in March. We may have to wait till May 1, regardless, where we have the contract. They had a little glitch on someone else who, they lost their contract somehow. The digital board that you see is contracted through the chamber, and they've let us put the new look up on that board as well, so you'll be seeing it on theirs. The video that was started last year, Lindsay and the Economic Development Department has been working with them, and they decided to move those dates because they were coming the week of our really nice windstorm. So they will now be here at the end of April when things look a little nicer. So we were happy about that, and we're working with her on that as well as social. So that has worked really, really well. As we work through some of these things, the big thing that we're working on is the website. You'll start seeing reporting being a little bit different. Lindsay's reached out to us asking about reporting some different things. We'll make those changes as we have the new elements. And we're looking at things to report back to you. We'll ask for your feedback, make sure it's what you're wanting to see. The website is the big one, as Tom mentioned. We have contracted with the web company. We have a kickoff meeting that will either happen next week or the week after with the economic development team. We've been gathering art files, all kinds of content just to get it going. And then once I kind of have everything in an organized setting, I'll send that to the advertising committee to review before anything goes live. Their process is about 2 to 3 months. Everyone that we talked to who would do it on their own was 2 to 3 months. So as those things are happening, we're continuing to research the target industries, the mediums, because we're going to hit it extra hard once that website is up. One thing that we do have to report that has gone on, though, is from the SHOT Show that we talked about back in January. And I'm going to let Brittany report on that one.
Yes. So I know that we also talked during the last meeting about how we would probably not be really pursuing the, gun manufacturing because of all the incentives everyone else is giving. So all of this, keep that in mind as I'm saying this. We did have a successful campaign. With that said, targeting the attendees of the SHOT Show. The SHOT Show this year was in Las Vegas. And so we actually did some more advanced targeting than we would normally do with geofences, knowing that you have lots of people coming in and out of the area around where the SHOT Show was. I believe it was at the Venetian. We layered in addition to a geofence, we also layered in only targeting those who have shown any interest in the ammunition and gun manufacturing industry, so that we weren't getting people who were just also, guests at the hotel or somewhere in the nearby vicinity. We actually were able to extend that campaign within the same budget, run a little bit longer, which was really nice. We over-delivered by 1,371 impressions. So that basically means you got an extra 1,300 impressions you didn't have to pay for, which is really nice. We had a total, and I've emailed all of this to the advertising committee. I wanted y'all to be able to lay eyes on it first. We just got all the final results today. So you got in your emails right before the meeting started. So after that, if you want us to include these numbers into the next report so that you have them, documented and aren't having to listen to me spout them off, we can easily add those. But you had just over 108,000 impressions delivered. It was 108,371. 117 clicks. That comes out to an 11% average click-through rate. Some certain ad sets were higher than others, but 11%, which for context is over double the industry average. The industry average is 0.05. So it performed really well and to a very hyper-targeted audience, which is really nice. And anyone who showed interest, we kept retargeting ads to them, so it's kind of staying top of mind.
What are we doing to retarget those especially those click-throughs that did show interest on an ongoing basis?
So we have, the one thing that's really nice is we still have that pixel installed on the website. So at any point we want to run a campaign targeted to them, we still have all that data and can keep retargeting to them. So that's something we can easily kind of keep remarketing based on, especially once the new website is live, it'll be really nice to have that. But they were all driven to a landing page we made specifically for the SHOT Show and tailored the marketing to their interest.
And we'll do this for some of the others. Tracy also sent us the leads that they got back from the show. So we'll kind of use this as our model going forward, learn from it, and see what else. Brittany will take a look at all of those things for the next ones as well.
Yeah, and all of the leads that Tracy has, we're also able, once we have the new website, have somewhere we really want to drive them, we can also market directly to them. We have different ways to specifically target those who have expressed interest, in addition to those who clicked.
Excellent.
One thing I failed to mention, the existing website, we did go in and make some very minimal changes, updated board members, took off some old information, so that while it's out there, people hit that they're going to get the most recent. We will probably be reaching out to a couple of board members to get new headshots and things like that for the new website, possibly some short biographical information as well. Any questions?
I have a question. Did you have to start with all your artwork and make a foundation, or were you able to keep using what was your predecessor left, or was that our property, theirs? Or?
So after talking to them, most of what you have is yours. Okay. There's one campaign that was more of a preliminary campaign that they retain the rights to, but I think on everything else, the new things that we showed last month with only Odessa, that is 100% yours. We'll be moving forward with that one. And it's kind of a mixed thing. They've provided all of the content, all of the things that you guys had done in the past, but there is one campaign that they did retain ownership of. But after talking to the advertising committee, we weren't going to pursue that one. We wanted to put something new out there.
I understand. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
And for the SHOT Show, because it was before we had done any new artwork, it was something actually that came up before we had the full contract. And so with that one, we were able to use your existing look and then just update it. At the time, we used just kind of a really good application for business. And so we were able to use all of the graphics that they provided for us to keep a consistent look until we had a new one established. Yes.
That's good.
I guess the question for Tracy maybe is how many leads did we develop off of SHOT Show?
There were a little over 100.
I think so. In that spreadsheet, I think it was just a little over 100 on that. So.
Have any of those shown any promise that?
That it just they were all, in the future we're looking to do an expansion, but a lot of them are just
3 months out from the show's pretty
Yeah.
quick, because they're not going to tell you how much interest they have. But depending on what their current situation is, the people that might have one, that's probably summer, fall.
And there's been a few of those that we have, it's been like 2 or 3 years down the road before they expressed any interest to actually go ahead and move forward, so.
So we have a campaign to kind of drip on those folks on a long-term basis, just to keep our name in front of them.
It's something we certainly need to look at. I think just getting these, having to wait until, after the show and it ran longer, I think we're just now getting to where we're looking at it and seeing how successful, but certainly something we can look at.
Yeah, and since we can hyper-target so specifically, we can kind of dig in more with the economic development team and really kind of fine-tune the messaging to those specific, that specific audience. And we can run super targeted ads to them where we even refresh the creative pretty often, so. Yeah.
And even if they're not tracking that with our new CRM, EDOIQ, when we come back from a meeting and the list is developed, the first thing we do is we hand it to Lindsay. She enters everybody into EDOIQ. And then the next time we go out, like we sent out a big email blast in December to everybody from last year. And that list is just going to grow and grow and grow.
And Lindsay shared that list with us as well. So
Yeah.
we are just getting our feet wet in there and I'm kind of learning it for sure, but we do have access as well.
We have access and can export the list and do targeted campaigns once we start the digital advertising.
Excellent. Any other questions? Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Appreciate it. Wonderful. Black Chamber, Dr. Walker.
Evening, everyone. You believe in putting a man on the spot, don't you?
Good afternoon.
After those two great presentations, I'm not going to bore you with my little stuff. We're going to hit the high points. We pretty much we just wanted to start off that our numbers were very, very, very exciting. And a lot of this was due to last month being Black History Month. Our digital display that we had there on Grant was very well accepted, very well received. That was one of the reasons our numbers on our Facebook, our office calls, our visits, everything. We got all type of feedback on that, and that kind of drove our numbers through the roof. So wish that was something we could do every month, but we can't. We were able to run 28 different people each day, one person per day. This was members of our community, council people, former council people, school teachers, business people, just individuals that had been with their respective companies for 50 years. This is something we just wanted to kind of give a history lesson. So it was very well received. It went over very well. It pretty much drove our Facebook numbers through the roof. And a lot of them was pretty much to the point that, how do I get my relative on there? So, next year we'll take applications. But pretty much that started February 1st and went through the 28th. And then on February 23rd, we're doing I did our workshop with this BDC, which is Store to Franchise. Tyler will give you the numbers when he does his presentation. And then we met with a young lady a doctor from a neighboring city. We're going to team with the Odessa Chamber. We talked to her once again. She's going to do a women's conference at the Marriott in June. So she's given us a bunch of information. As a matter of fact, we're looking for some other people that to assist her with that conference. So pretty much she's out of Pecos, but pretty much everything is going to be done here in town. So they didn't have really what they needed there. So we're glad she reached out to us. So we were able to help her to pull this off. So we're looking forward to that. We just sent out our 4th community calendar of events. We started with one page now. This month calendar is 20 pages long, and this is different events in the community from all aspects of the community to reach out and let everybody know what's taking place, who they can contact, and how to get involved in these events and then these activities. And pretty much we have an event. We met with the St. James Baptist Church, which they have an event coming up, which we discussed, which we're working with them as well. They are going to have an event, and it will take place this weekend. It'll pretty much be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it is bringing people in from as far as Chicago and to New Orleans, Dallas, Houston. So this is going to be a very big event, and we have been working with them to kind of get them, and along with Odessa Chamber, to get them bags, packets, and different, because they're going to put people in hotel rooms. And as a matter of fact, we've been picking people up from the airport pretty much the last couple of days. So this is just some of the high points. It's a lot of other stuff. We got some things that'll be coming up in a few months. We're planning our annual cleanup event that we did on last year, which was very successful. So we're looking at doing quite a few events and doing a lot more activities and getting a lot more involved. And I did not mention I talked to Mr. Robinson. He, as a matter of fact, the advice that we talked about, the gentleman did agree that he will start looking for a smaller facility, and I think we have already found him something. So we're in the financial stage of what they're going to want for that facility. So it worked out pretty good. So any questions, comments, or complaints?
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Right. UTPB, Small Business Development Center, Mr. Tyler Patton.
Good afternoon. Hope everyone's doing well. You have a report in your packet. I wanted to go over it real quick. For the month of February, we had 247 counseling sessions and 201 counseling hours, which you're not aware of, wouldn't be aware of. I was actually out a full week, so I didn't get any counseling hours for 7 days thanks to COVID. Thank you very much. But I'm fine. We did 3 seminars with 25 attendees. One of those was how to start a franchise. That was the in-person workshop. The Black Chamber was a sponsor. We had about 17 of our folks at that one, of the 25 total for the month. So everything else kind of dropped off a little bit. Our other workshops were fraud prevention and the final of a series, the Profit Suit Group. There, we had companies from all over Northwest Texas participating in, including 8 from the Permian Basin. So that wrapped up in February as well. Okay. 4 new businesses in the area. The industries there included our oilfield supply company, one of the few we've gotten from that industry in a while, but we're kind of seeing a surge of those lately. A paint and wallpaper retailer, a horse training and boarding company, first one of those I've had, it's kind of fun, and a community kitchen for food producers, also the first one of those we've ever had, and that was pretty fun. One of those is in Odessa. Capitalization for the month, excuse me, 1.9 million and change, and 21 and a half FTEs. Most of those came from the oilfield supply company. It's basically a machine shop they're fabricating tools and things for the oilfield. Any questions? This month, we will have SWOT analysis. It will be one of our workshops. The second workshop will be next week. It's access to capital. It's going to be on the 15th. That is actually National SBDC Day. So we're doing that in person. We'll serve lunch again. I think we're doing barbecue and fried chicken. So please join us. It's be out at the out at the Wagner Noel again. And then the final workshop for the month will be business structure. And that'll be later this month.
Excellent. Any questions, Mr. Powell?
All right. Thank you.
One question.
Oh, yes, sir.
Since Christy's still here, are we linking their seminars onto our, are we giving any?
We have.
Yeah.
I know Lindsay's been advertising those,
Yes.
and so she'd asked me about them, and so it's going directly to her.
Yeah. Yeah, they're sharing them on Facebook and other social media, absolutely. We appreciate that. That's great.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right. Motran, Mr. Beecham.
We left for all of you a USB drive up here that has the draft of, it's not a virus to infect your computer. We thought about that, but we went ahead and skipped it. Of the complete I-20 report that was just finished this morning, that's the draft. There's a lot of great economic data in there and stuff about the whole area. Of course, we're going to have the whole interstate up here tore out. So, but like I said, there's some great economic information in there for you, and it also has a complete I-14 report. We didn't include all of that in your ordinary packet, so you'll have those just in case. Other than that, we have been in earmark or financial request mode. And today is a 5 p.m. deadline for our House Appropriations, so if you don't have anything else for me, I need to get back and rewrite something that just went off the track. So,
Questions for Mr. Beecham?
thank y'all.
Thank you, Tension. All right. Financials, Mr. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You have the financial report included in your packet, and as we've done the last several months, I'd like to work down through identifying page 4 and tying that to pages 2 and 5. So it's one right in the middle that's entitled Notes to Financial Statements. I'll start there if that's all right. You'll see that the summary, which is the page following, will show the purchase amount or revenues for the month were a total of $1,160,894, which ties to the amount of revenue on page 2, and then again to the summary on page 5. You'll see the changes in fair value and interest. You'll see the government pools, CDs and CDRs, ARs, savings and money markets, and then the municipal bonds. We did not buy any securities this month, so there's no additional accrued purchase accrued interest. We did receive interest on one of the bonds, and then the amount of accrued interest received there. And so you'll see that the $228,964 is the amount that we showed in there for the revenue within that area. Item C, the changes in fair value. That's the amortization or accretion of the premium and discounts on the bonds when you compare the coupon to the market rate, and it's calculated on a monthly basis as required by GAAP. Item D, the sales and withdrawal amount. You'll see that we had $1,001,420. The $578,144 is the expenditures for the month. That ties back to page 2. And we also had a transfer to replenish cash for January of $423,276. So the $1,001,420 will tie to the number that's on the 5th page as well. Finally, I will just note E, you'll see there's nothing in there because we did not purchase any securities in January. But I will note that we did purchase one at the end of February, the amount of $2 million, Connecticut state bonds that have a yield of 5.07 with a maturity date of July 1, 2024.
Excellent.
And then finally, if I may, the sales tax revenues for the month just came in yesterday. The ODC sales tax collections for this month, March of 2023, were $1,242,674, which is an increase of $413,549, or 49.88% when compared to March of 2022. On a fiscal year-to-date basis, the total collected for fiscal year 2023, which is now 6 months into the year since we began on 10/1, is $7,182,077, an increase of $1,410,522, or 24.44% when you compare that to the first 6 months of fiscal year 2022. With that, I'd be happy to address any questions or issues that you may have.
Anyone have any questions? Love the summary page, that helps tremendously. Thank you so much.
I would move for approval of the financial report.
Have a motion from Mr. Buchanan. Have a second from Ms. Holman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Awesome. See you again in a minute. Okay. This brings us to our committee reports. And I know that the partnership we're scheduled for March the 30th. Is that right, Tracy? I think that's right. So I will probably see, Jeff, I may have you go, and does anybody else want to go in my stead? I'm going to be out of town on the 30th.
I have to look at my calendar. I wouldn't mind going if I've got an open schedule.
Okay. That'd be great.
I kind of think I'm out of town, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Tax Incentive Committee, did you guys?
Did not meet yet.
Okay. Advertising, update?
Yeah, we haven't met since the last time. We have been getting regular updates from Christy and crew and Brittany. And so that, it seems like everything's kind of proceeding at pace now that we've got contracts signed and a lot of the work kicked off. So
Excellent. Okay, DOI?
Yep.
We haven't
We
met.
don't have a director, I mean,
Yeah. Well, there's an interim, but
There's an
we
interim.
haven't
Yeah.
been called upon.
Okay. Compliance?
We had a orientation for new members that really went well. It was very well spent, very thorough. But Peggy did a really nice job of guiding everyone through that.
Excellent, thank you. And legal services?
We met a few times. We spoke, as y'all will recall, last time we talked about an attorney with Jackson Walker, who we enjoyed talking to. His billing rate, just as a reminder, was $1,000 an hour. We got to speak to two more this time. There's one more I have a call into, but have not managed to connect with. It was the law firm that you sent the name of, and interestingly, one of the partners was actually at my firm when we first started in 2008. He was there before he moved on to the Midland City Attorney's Office. So we spoke to two attorneys. We spoke to Jeff Moore, right? Is that his last name? We were very impressed with him in our conversation, and I'll let David and Larry talk about it more. I haven't been getting to sleep much, so I'm kind of scrambled eggs for brains. But he has very impressive experience. He started out in '92 as an assistant city attorney in Austin. He was there for 7 years. Moved on to the Attorney General's office in the Municipal Affairs section. Was there from '99 to 2003. During that time, he worked on the Economic Development Handbook for 4A entities. He does and still does sales tax training. He went into private practice in 2003 in a firm that municipal matters is sounds like it's their main practice. He currently represents about 40 economic development corporations and has dealt with the type-A sales tax and related matters since 1999. Now, when I say his billable rate, I expect oohs and ahs and shock. His rate is $250 an hour.
Have we sent him a contract?
Well, and in talking about that, I think that is because that firm caters to municipal organizations, and so their billing rate is set up to, address that. He has a lot of expertise. He collaborates extensively with city legal departments in the EDCs that he works with. In fact, Joel Roberts, I don't know if y'all remember him, used to call him and ask him questions. We spoke this morning with the gentleman that you got the name of at Munch Hart, and his name is Phil Gahib. There's a lot of consonants and a lot, but and before I go in too much to what he said, his first recommendation was actually this Jeff Moore person, because he said he normally works in a different area of economic development, but he says he has enjoyed working with Jeff Moore, highly recommends him, that he's good to work with. And David, I'll let you take it away on Phil.
Yeah, and his area really is on the other side, and I thought it was great that he went through his qualifications to make sure
I don't
that.
know what you mean. I thought he said it was great that he went through his qualifications. How about a web search for him?
What is that?
I think
You got Siri going there.
So would it be inappropriate for me to say, shut up? I've never had that happen. I don't even know it.
She didn't look like that, did she there?
So anyway, he was very careful to go through his qualifications, and what he offered really didn't match up with what we were looking for, and I thought that was really well done on his part. I was very impressed with his. He said, well, I can think of 2 or 3, 4 attorneys that I can recommend to you that would probably be more closely associated with the work that you're looking for. And his first, the one that came right off the top of his list was this Jeff Moore.
Without prompting from us of any kind. So.
It was the pinnacle on his list. I mean, that's what he brought forward as the best. So.
And I think Larry and I were, and Melanie we were all very impressed with the conversation that we had. And I think, barring anything unforeseen, I think our recommendation probably ultimately is going to be to head that direction. Maybe again, we don't know exactly what our process ought to be, but maybe given some direction to pursue this, interface with the local city attorney's office, and see how that would mesh, and how that might fit. There are other things I think that he could offer in the area of open meetings, open records, and other municipal. He's actually the city attorney for 4 or 5 small communities. Wow. So he has a very comprehensive understanding of the needs. And Tom?
Yeah, if you don't mind, perhaps to give a better look at Mr. Moore, when you mentioned the sales tax workshop, that kind of pinged in my ear, because I've been trying to get somebody from TEDC out here for a while, because I know we have a number of new members. I think the city has told me they have a number of people at City Hall that need to go through sales tax training. So maybe I could, is he with Jackson Walker?
No, he is with, what's the name of his law firm? It's a firm that specializes in municipal matters. I can get you his information, but he says that he does do frequently the TDEC trainings.
Well, that could be a good way to get him out here for a workshop, and then board members can meet, smell, sniff, whatever, and decide what you think of it. But we need to put together a workshop and get sales tax training, especially for our new board members.
Yeah, we were impressed with him just for, he's with Brown and Hoffmeister. Just for completeness of information, Phil Gahib's billing rate was $450. So, still not as high as the first one, as Jackson Walker, but it's hard to beat $250 an hour.
sounds like his expertise lies right in
It's-
what exactly.
it's a
what we're looking
bullseye.
for.
Yeah, I think the billing rate is a secondary issue.
Absolutely.
Secondary benefit is the way that I would say it.
I think it'd be a steal at twice the price.
I think he could collaborate with the city. He's worked in every aspect of municipalities and city government, so it might be beneficial to.
Well, is it the opinion of our committee then that we move forward with trying to do something with Jeff Moore and the firm of Brown and Hoffmeister?
Yes.
And I think it would be appropriate for us to interface with Mr. Jones and you know, going forward. And obviously, I do think it makes some sense. It may be a good opportunity to have some kind of seminar out here to get better acquainted and whatnot. So maybe kill two birds with one stone.
So
Let's do this then, if it's okay, just to kind of make things official. Can I get a motion just to go ahead and move forward with exploring more details on a relationship with Brown and Hoffmeister?
Why don't we make that a motion from the committee, the task force?
Oh, okay, that's a great idea.
Let's do it that way. It won't need a second, so.
Okay, great. Yeah, then that's good. We'll just run with that motion from our committee, and let's move forward.
And we vote. Then we make a motion and then vote, and then call for a vote.
Well,
It doesn't need a second, but it needs a vote.
I'll second.
Just needs a vote.
So you make the motion?
Yeah, yes,
Okay. Then the three of you in favor?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think it's unanimous. Excellent. All right.
What's your email address?
And if you guys would just coordinate with Mr. Jones and we'll move forward. And first of all, let me be the first to thank the three of you guys. I know you guys put a lot of time and energy and it's very, very
Yeah,
important.
Melanie did the heavy lifting, but we really did, I think, a thorough
Under
job.
names.
I think you did too. Thank you guys so much for doing that. I think it's gonna make a huge difference for OBC and for the city in multiple areas moving forward. So thank you.
But, you know, when he said his billing rate, I said, excuse me, would you please repeat that? It was a pleasant surprise.
Yes, great
But,
job.
hey, when he gets here, do not talk about how low his billing rate is.
Oh, man. Well, we'll pull the technical, man, 250, could you find it in your heart taking less than that? Great job. Okay, audit proposals. This has to do with our grant audits. We had two proposals from Weaver and also from Whitley Penn. And wasn't the last meeting because I wasn't here, but the meeting right before, our suggestion was to take those proposals, let you guys review them, and us come back. Mr. Fry, could you give us just one more little synopsis? I asked Larry to bring those with him today of the two, and then we can have a quick discussion. I was hoping we could go ahead and make a vote on who we wanted to use and move forward.
Well, I'll just say to begin that the actual request for proposal is for compliance consulting services. It's not actually an audit per se, but it is the ones to ensure compliance with the reports from the different grantees that have been done to review that. As Mr. Crow said, we did receive two responses to the request for proposal, one from Whitley Penn that shows an Odessa address on it, and one also from Weaver that shows a Midland address on that one that we received. Both of them, I think, are certainly very qualified to do these types of services from what I've agreed in their proposals. I think a lot of it has to do with just the different approaches that they take and the different people that they have in place to do this work. Obviously, Weaver has done this work for us for, I couldn't tell you how many years, a number of years. But I don't know how much detail you want to go into. I hope everyone has read through the proposals that would contain what their kind of what their approach is in trying to deal with these different tasks that need to be done to ensure compliance with the grant provision.
And if I'm not mistaken, the cost for each grant proposal between Weaver and Whitley was, I want to say one was 85 and one was 65. Am I close?
If I recall correctly, I believe that Weaver actually presented in two different options. Bear with me just a moment. I'm sorry, I don't have that right here.
That's fine.
They had a fee option A of a desk review, project management, report preparation of $8,500 per report. Option B, which is desk review and report preparation, is $5,000 per report. So again, depending upon what approach you wanted to take within that one, but those are the two options that they had given. Let me quickly find the, from Whitley Penn, the total cost per report is $6,500. They did not have those two options, and to be fair, those options were not outlined in the RFP either to do it that way, but that's how we chose to respond.
I don't remember what I was going to say, I'm sorry.
Can you give us a little better idea on the detail between Weaver's option A and B? Obviously, there's a big difference
See
in
if
price
they
there.
give any further explanation of that. If you don't mind me reading just a paragraph or two here.
Please.
Option A represents the historical model, which is historical meaning what's been done here in the city of Odessa with the ODC, in which the outsourced firm contacts the grantee and arranges for collection of records, reviews the records, reports on progress to ODC management, prepares the report, and presents the report to management and the board. These types of engagement are historically unpredictable, since the collection of records for its grantee may take only one request or multiple requests and extensive feedback and communication with the grantee, having to go back multiple times to get the information, which has happened on many occasions. Option B, again, option A was $8,500 as identified, which is what they've done before. Option B represents a new model in which Weaver would prepare the document request list, and ODC management would be responsible for collecting all of the information and presenting it to us for desk review as one package of information. The way I read that when I first read through this, and I've not discussed this with them, would mean that we would be responsible for gathering that information from the company, submitting it for review, and allow them to prepare the report back to ODC.
I think at one time the city was heavily engaged in that process.
They actually did the audit.
I think that for a period of time, and Tracy, you may remember more specifically, didn't the city gather the data and submit it to Weaver?
Well, no, originally it was the city, they had
The city auditor?
The city employee that did all the audits, but then they got way behind.
Yeah, I
And that's when
remember.
they engaged Weaver to take over doing the audits.
For some reason, I thought that when Todd was here at City Legal, he would contact the grantees. Do you remember Todd?
Yes.
And that he would gather the information and submit it to Weaver?
And it could be that they were
And I don't remember if that worked well or not, but for some reason, we moved away from it. I don't know if it's because Todd moved on or...
That's probably what it's because they moved on. You know, and I know.
And I don't think that they have the capacity to do it right now.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think we should add the due stress on the city or our development team. Now, Tom, would you disagree?
What was your statement?
I don't think that this option B would be a good option for us because it would add more stress to our ODC team to gather the information for the audit.
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up. That's why I raised my hand. We're kind of out of that process right now.
Yeah.
And we're the ones that have the relationship, meet with these people. We got them to typically submit an application. You know, Nacero's a good one. Wes was the director, and he probably spent 6 hours a day with those guys. And so who would you want to approach them once they're up and running to get the information you need to conduct an audit?
I think you're making a good point, except for the fact that I think it needs to be more of a third party doing it.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, just from a technical perspective, I get what you're saying, but I think having the auditor solicit that information, get what they want, makes more sense.
I don't mind using a third party, but keep us in the loop.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because like I went to, we had a couple of.
Tom, I think a good example would be, look, if our audit firm, I'm going to call them an audit firm, they're doing a review, they're trying to determine whether its compliance is met.
Compliance consulting.
Yeah, my thoughts would be if they're having some difficulty extracting the information, then the first thing they ought to do is pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, we can't get this information out of you.
Well, and it would be nice if they'd keep us like at the very beginning of the process. We have never been involved in that process, but we get all the complaints.
Yeah.
That's
We
what I'm
find out
saying.
about it when they call us and
Yes.
go, where the heck is our check?
And it's like, oh, well, let's check. It would
So
just
we
be
need
nice.
to,
if
so we need to increase
at
the
least
flow of
it-
communication between you
Exactly.
guys and the audit,
Exactly.
the compliance firm.
And they may be contacting the wrong person, and if
Yeah.
they are, we can certainly steer them in the right direction.
Yeah, and I appreciate that the information flow makes sense, but the work actually needs to be done, and the requests need to be done by that third party, in my opinion. I think I would be more comfortable that way.
Here's what if I can make a suggestion that you guys might think about doing, is when we're getting close to the need for the time of the compliance review, is for whoever it is, the compliance firm, whether it's Whitley, to reach out to you guys and say, hey, we've got XYZ company coming up. Who do we need to be contacting over there? And maybe even you guys help them make that initial contact. And then from that point forward, they kind of carbon copy you guys on all the correspondence so that you kind of see what's going on through the process. Is that?
That would be great.
Yeah, and we can walk them over there, because, I mean, think about it. At the end of the day, who wants to sit down and put together information for an auditor? So, yeah, we'd be happy to do everything we can.
Excellent. I think we could do that with either firm. I think we could tell them, look, the first step is to reach out to economic development in the process, to get contact information, emails, let you guys help make the introduction, and then be the, lack of a better description, a liaison. If we're not getting information back timely or whatever, that you guys can do that point of contact. I think that's great. Yeah, good point.
Larry, does the proposal for either firm have a list of the professionals that would be working on this?
Yes, ma'am, they do. Both of them have the different people involved who are proposed to be involved are outlined with their resumes and background identified.
Well, I wouldn't think so. No.
But yes, ma'am, they do.
She's in tax. I mean, she wouldn't be on there.
So the Whitley Penn proposal, is it your understanding that would be, what they're proposing would be comparable to what kind of the process we currently follow, where they would help with the collection and be the primary only collection?
Mr. Russell, that would be my understanding. I think Weaver called it the historical model in their response to the proposal. I believe that's what was communicated to different possible proposers for this RFP. And again,
that was my
we chose to
remembrance.
respond a little bit differently with different options.
Right.
But I read through it, that's what I got as a
Yeah, that's what I
to the
remember.
historical model where they gather the information, they run all the reports, they come back and give us a final report, make the recommendations.
Based on that, I'd make the motion that we engage Whitley Penn at their $6,500 proposed fee to perform our compliance audits for I guess it's a one-year contract.
Yes.
Is that typically what we do?
I believe it is. It's either the 1 year or for the remainder of the fiscal year, one or the other. I couldn't answer it specifically, but without reviewing it again.
So I have a motion from Mr. Russell to use Whitley Penn with the $6,500 rate for whatever the contract period would be Mr. Fry would look at.
A second.
Have a second from Mr. Robinson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fry. Okay. Brings us to item 9, which is a presentation of the ODC grants for Mr. Russell.
No, you have item 8.
That's you.
That's you, Mr. Furrow.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. I appreciate that. Discuss and recap our meeting from ODC, City Council, and County Commissioners Court. First of all, let me thank all of you for participating in that meeting. all of the feedback that I've received has been tremendous, both from county commissioners and city council. It seems like it's really opened up a better communication lane between the county commissioners court and the city council. They've asked that hopefully we continue that. Tentatively, hopefully we'll have another one they've talked about before county commissioners court goes into their budget cycle in July, to have another meeting and hopefully facilitate that for them. I made a list of all of the questions that I had in my notes from the meeting, from both city council and county commissioners court, and all that came up in Mr. Rutan's questions as well. Summarized them kind of into one sheet. I have forwarded that over to the mayor and to the county judge and asked them to look at it, and any additional questions they have to please add it to that, and then we can get those questions back to the respective folks that can answer that. And I told them that, with economic development, we would be thrilled to help answer and gather that information for them and get back to both entities so that they can come back together and hopefully iron out those 3 to 4 interlocal agreements that they talked about. And then in the future, look forward to do some more meetings. There are 27 interlocal agreements that are out there, most of which haven't been updated in well over a decade. So it was a fabulous, fabulous meeting. Like I said, right now we're in the process just waiting to get those questions back. We'll try to go to work answering the questions, getting the information that they've asked, and get those back to council and back to commissioners court. And then look forward to hopefully setting another meeting in the next couple months. So, any questions on any of that? I don't know if I have a whole lot of answers other than just we got a lot of thanks from both sides on that. I said thank you for facilitating and opening up that channel of communication.
I know Melanie and I had talked after the meeting, and kind of the thing that we were talking about was, is there anything that ODC can do, either little teams of 2 or as a whole committee or whatever, to just really help these guys keep moving forward, because kind of what we've seen happen in the past, sometimes these things kind of get stalled out. We're not advancing, and another year's gone by, and we really haven't done anything. So I mean, I don't know what our role needs to be, but I think everybody would like to see it move forward and us actually get these things resolved.
Yes, and I think everybody was really clear. Everything that the county does affects the city and it affects economic development. Everything that the city does affects the county and it affects economic development. So with the 3 entities being on the same page and everybody in the same room asking questions and working together, I think it's a little more inevitable that it's going to happen going forward. And I think as economic development, we can kind of take that bull by the horns and help to kind of nudge that down the road so that it doesn't stall out, as you said, Mr. Russell.
One of the things that Jeff and I spoke about was whether or not it would make sense to sit down and look at all the interlocal agreements and see if a board member wouldn't pick out one agreement and a commissioner and a council member for that agreement to try to facilitate ongoing communication that can then go back to their respective boards and hopefully, I think it's great for people to talk, but they've got to start. If there's,
what we've seen
having
in the
meetings
past
to talk about how much we need to do something is useless.
I agree. What we've seen under that model is where, and that's kind of what they've done in the past, is had a couple of members of council, a couple of members of commissioners court meet together and everybody kind of do great, but when they go back, they get a lot of, well, did you ask them this? Well, did you ask them that? Well, what about this? And did you tell them that? And so it seemed that having everybody in the same room where everybody had an opportunity to participate, it eliminated all of that. And so,
I think I agree somewhat with Melanie, though, that I would hope that by the time we get to the next meeting, we actually have some actionable items on the table from these guys. It's not just, again, talking about what we don't know or what we do know or our questions.
But that creates an opportunity where if you have a small team from each entity that's putting together, here's the information, and then at the next county commissioners meeting, they present that information, the commissioners say, well, what about this, and then your action team can continue to gather information or coordinate with whoever's drafting or something.
I think it's a great idea as long as you follow it up later with a big meeting with everybody.
Sure.
You know what
Well, I mean,
And I think
I
that's
think
probably
that the
where it
actual-
fell in the past, is they just never followed on.
The actual decision-making
Back
has to
together.
be made in the open meetings, but you can't,
Good point.
you've got to move, it's just frustrating, because it doesn't do any good for the personalities to be butting heads and accomplishing nothing.
You touched on interlocals a minute ago, and so they don't stand on their own as each, but they were daisy chained. One, we did this for you, we did this, and those people aren't there anymore. Nobody remembers, and it was, you scratch my back, I'll give you another one. And so even though each one should stand on their own, nobody really remembers why they did it, or who got the greater benefit of it.
I might make
contest.
make a suggestion, because to me, the most fragile part of this has always been the mayor, the relationship between the mayor and the county judge. And now, it appears to me to be pretty positive. And so we ought to take advantage of it. Maybe what we focus on is trying to follow up with the mayor and the county judge in determining, you know, did you get the information you were looking for? Do you need any additional information? And what can we do to help facilitate? And when do you think you're going to be ready for another meeting? I think maybe that's the place we could start.
I have one big complaint. No more 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. meetings where there's not food. I can't do that.
Especially on Fat Tuesday.
Yeah, you'll ruin it. I need supper.
Food, okay. Chips and salsa.
At minimum.
Would it be possible to kind of take what Melanie's idea was of kind of breaking into some little teams, and just simply those teams be, you know, let's say Melanie and I take Tax Assistance District, just for example, and we take all those questions and we work with both sides to gather the information, and then we could actually go in and present that information to Commissioners Court. We're just sharing information. Same thing, we present that to City Council. We see if they have any more questions, we gather those, and we kind of go through that process a time or two, so that when we do come together, it's like, okay, we had 48 questions, we've answered 48 questions, now let's come to an agreement and let's figure out what we do here, and that's the joint meeting so we kind of got them all prepped and educated, and everybody's got the info they need.
So you want to use that specific issue as a pilot?
Well, you've got 3 on the table that you can choose from right now, which is Tax Assistance District, the OFR responding to the county, and then the county housing of city inmates in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
So any of those 3 would be great.
I mean, I don't know if we could break up into 2 and 2s and 2s or something, and each take on one. I mean, I don't know.
Well, from the ODC perspective, the first one that you talked about is the most critical.
It is.
I mean, that's the one that we really do need to stay focused on.
Well, let's pitch that to the judge and the mayor,
Okay.
and see what they think, and just we'll share the ideas that you guys have had today. If you guys are open to that, I mean, it obviously means a little more legwork and time and issue on ours, but
It
these
could
are big
help
issues.
to have people who have it in their mind, okay, we need to meet every other week, and that are pushing the schedule. And if somebody is kind of bringing the parties to the table, maybe that will
Okay, great point.
accomplish something. Maybe it won't, but at least it's
At least we
an
tried.
effort. Gosh,
Great
yeah.
idea. Well, if it's okay, I've got them kind of both on speed dial. I'll be happy to reach out to the mayor and the judge and share your ideas with them and see what they think. But great ideas. Great discussion. Wonderful. Okay. Anything else on the joint meeting? Okay. Which takes us now to item 9. Thank you. To the presentation on the ODC grants. Mr. Russell, you want to do it? Yes.
You take one. Yeah, here's a better copy of it. So there's one, and I want to tell you what I'm driving at here. In our audit book last meeting, they had this, and I really got interested in it. They had in the back of the audit book was a listing by year of every grant that ODC had done since the beginning of time. And I really kind of got interested in looking at that just to better understand what we've done since 1997 was when the ODC was originally formed. I guess 1999 was the first year the grant was given out. And so I took and kind of put all that on a spreadsheet so that I could analyze it a little bit. And you see it broken down by who it was and all. And then I kind of went through as best I could and kind of categorized what kind of grant this was. So I used a few big categories, which were what I call job creation, which were typical ODC. We're building buildings, we're creating jobs, we're getting kind of that normal business type of deal. And then education and training, so there were things in there that we've done with OC, UTV in particular, over time. There are infrastructure grants, everything from the Convention Center parking garage to the JBS Parkway overpass, to things that we've incentivized TxDOT in order to move our projects up the list to get things done. And then there were some nonprofit deals in there, so things like the food bank, some things like that were in there. So I kind of went through them as best as I could, just knowing what the company was and all. So I tried to kind of categorize those things into, because I wanted a little better sense of where, what's our history and what have we done and where are we going and where are we at now and all those things. And so the first couple pages with the color bars on it are just the raw data of every grant, how much it was in total. And it's kind of interesting when you look at it, particularly in the early years, we were doing a lot more smaller grants. You look at like 2001, 2 and 3, you see a lot of, $100,000 grants, $135,000 grants, $25,000 grants. And if you look at most of those companies that are on there, those I believe were probably mostly companies that were already here, that were expanding. And so ODC was helping them. You also see in the very early stages, and I think we probably all remember this, there was a concerted move which ultimately failed, but I admire early ODC boards for taking that initiative of some diversification attempts. And that primarily came in the form of telemarketing companies. First American Home Buyers, Sitel, Telvista, those are in there. So those were diversification attempts. And when we were in a real economic downturn, those were some things that were landed to create jobs, and it worked until the oil field picked back up, and then they couldn't keep their workers because the oil field paid better. And so I think there were 3 or 4 of those done. I think 3 of the 4, I'm just going off memory, 3 of the 4 made it barely to the end of their contract, 5 years. I think one of them even pulled out a year ahead of time, just because they couldn't get the workers, and so they just kind of bailed on the project. But I appreciate those guys for taking the effort of diversification, and I understand the challenges there. But if you look at on page 3 of the handout, there's a little categorization summary. This little chart here. If you see it up there in the top and the middle, and so these are categorized by. I should have known the number of them too. I have to go back and do the count. But how many dollars have we expended in various types of categories? So today we spent about $527,000 in downtown facade and infrastructure grants is what those are. About $22 million in education and training type projects, $16 $0.5 million in infrastructure projects, $28 million or 40% in job creation, and about $2.5 million in kind of nonprofit things. I think most of that was probably to the food bank, and it seemed like there was one other in there maybe. But I kind of bring all this up to, because I really began as I looked at all this, okay, where do we need to be going? Here's our history and here's what we've done. And you've seen a little bit of a shift, I think, when you look at the data. It seems like we've shifted away over the years from smaller grants to primarily local companies doing expansion. And we've kind of gone, in some cases, we definitely have done more training grants, OC, UTV, and that's certainly within our wheelhouse, that whole workforce development area. In terms of numbers of grants, we've certainly done more downtown in recent years than we ever have. It doesn't amount to a lot of dollars because those are small grants. I think probably the biggest one on there is maybe $125,000 or something. But then we've kind of gone towards kind of I'll call it elephant hunting. Macero. We had the whole summit thing in there, which fortunately we got nearly all of our money back on that deal, as it never panned out. So as Chris and I talked about this a little bit, just kind of having an understanding of where do we need to be going in the next 5 years as the ODC. It seems too, when you look at that list of companies that we've offered grants to, the vast majority of those are some type of oil field related enterprise. And I think that's just the reality of our area. And I think I would love to say that we've diversified our economy a lot and all that, but we really know from experience just how daggum difficult that is. Because when the oil field's rolling, it's very hard to compete for non-oil field companies, because the oil field pays very well, and they just suck all the workers over to them, and I think that companies looking at us even in downtowns where there may be a more availability of workforce, they're saying, they're going, yeah, but when's the oil going to pick back up? And how long of a run can we have? And so I think it's very challenging on that front. The other interesting thing that we've seen happen, I think, in the last few years is, and we talked about this with Christy and Brittany and on the Ag Committee, was this whole sustainable energy thing. We're seeing solar farms, and we're seeing things like this. We're seeing also things like the 1.5 project, this carbon capture thing. We've seen Macero, they're talking about, kind of shifting their focus a little bit to sustainable jet fuel because they found I think a warmer investor reception, because everybody, I think, realizes that we're not going to be flying electric planes anytime soon. And so, while we may be driving more and more electric cars, nobody's expecting electric airplanes. So they're kind of shifting their focus. But so we've had this whole sustainable energy thing happen, and so I just kind of bring this up for a discussion point of I kind of made the comment last meeting, I think it was. My personal belief is that as ODC, we're not here to build a big bank account. We've got a pretty fat bank account right now. We've got a lot of money in it. I think our job as ODC is to find things that fit within our guidelines as a type A, but that yet we put that money to work in our community to do it. I wonder about job training and workforce development. Should we be spending more there? Things like that. The other question I had on that front, as I kind of really pondered on this stuff, was I know we've given a pretty goodly amount to OCUTV over several different projects and all, but I don't recall us ever getting a report back from those guys as to what that money accomplished. I think it did accomplish something. We just don't have, they just have never come back saying, hey, we built, with that money, we built the welding lab, and over the last 5 years, we've trained, 258 welders in that lab, and, all that kind of stuff. We haven't gotten any of that feedback to know maybe how effective those training dollars that we've invested in those programs has been. So really just a discussion point. The other thing that I looked at was, particularly in the last few years, and again, I want to be clear, this is a comment, not a criticism. But when you look at the last few years, you look at if we go back to like 2015, 2016, 2016, we did 4 downtown infrastructure grants and 1 nonprofit grant. That's what we originated that year. You go to 2017, there were 2 education job training and 1 job creation type grant.
I'm trying to remember, and Chris, I can't remember exactly when your term was. David, you'll remember too. During those years, there were some years when employment was so tight we couldn't attract a grantee. Do you remember which years those were? I mean, I think there's some data points that would help analyze all of this, and that being, and Tracy, I know that there was a time where we were saying, man, we've got to get some interest, and there was not enough workforce.
Right, because our unemployment level was, below
It
5%, and we weren't even making any cutoff lists. I mean, it was like, yeah, you guys are out. You cannot even supply what you have locally.
You can't supply employees for your local companies, and they're not going to cut. So, I mean, I think
right now.
I think that that's important information for us having and analyzing this.
And we can go back if you need that. We've got
Yeah. And I want to be clear. Like I said, this is not a criticism of what may have happened or not happened in economic development. Like Melanie points out, there may be some very, very good reasons. But I think too that when we, let's say that that's the case. Let's say that it was because we just didn't have people. We couldn't bring anybody in because we couldn't staff them. What do we do in those time periods as the ODC to say, look, we're not going to waste a bunch of time, effort, and money on trying to attract new businesses here. What we need to do is shift all of our resources that we have to attracting workers. Our training workers that are here maybe to develop that workforce. What do we do? What do we do in those times? Because I kind of feel like we're in that time now. I mean, if you look at nationally, they keep ratcheting. And I was listening to Jay Powell on Bloomberg the other day, and it made me depressed and angry at the same time. Because to hear him talk, this is happening all over the country. We're rationing up interest rates and we're doing all these things trying to cool the economy off, but the workforce, which is the key component of what they're trying to kind of tame, it just keeps beginning strong because there's just so many open jobs and so many companies that need workers, they're having no effect on it. And so you really wonder, okay, what do we do in times like that to help either our guys that are here get the staff they need? How do we better train that staff or whatever? Do we really need to shift into more job training? I know at the State of the District meeting the other night with the school district, there was a lot of talk around career and technical education. And we don't have, in ECISD, we don't have a CTE center per se. We have little hodgepodges of it around. And yet other communities, Abilene, Hobbs, places like, they're developing these things.
Well, I mean, it was part of the bond that was defeated. So, I mean, that's
Yeah. Well, and and I wonder what role ODC plays in all those things. And I don't know. I don't have any answers. I got lots of questions. I don't have any answers. But I kind of just wanted to bring this forward to.
Well, on your last report, Tom, what's our unemployment rate here? 3.7?
3.7.
3.5.
That's what I was thinking.
Which is
So-
low full employment.
Right, so statistically, any area, you have about a 4% unemployment rate because you have your elderly, you have your disabled, you have your youth, there's a certain number of folks that are supposed to be unemployed. So at
They say anything below
3.7%,
4, anybody who wants the job has one.
that's
Or
right.
is capable.
So technically, we're employing people we probably shouldn't be employing.
It's an economic crisis in itself.
Right, so that's kind of what this is about when Jeff and I were talking is, what can we do? How can we shift? How can we pivot to try to do that? Instead of trying to do the same thing over and over and over again, how can we pivot? How can we shift to try to help?
There are a couple of other data points, and I may be slightly on a tangent, that I would love to be able to see, and I don't know if it's possible, but I've always wondered, what I'd like to see is, I'd like to also see the amount of payroll that's been added as a result. And I'd really like to see a side-by-side comparison of what was the property tax before the grant and the property tax after the grant.
Totally agree.
I'd like to be
And I
able
was
to
way
see
too
those
lazy to
data.
do that.
Well, that would be just a huge amount of
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
I don't know who you get to put that together, but I'd love to see those data points too.
Well, and I think maybe if we just started back, I don't know that we have to go back to the beginning of time,
Oh,
but well, I do too. And that was my question. What has it done to our tax base? What has it done in total payroll dollars and things like that over time? Those were the exact same things and I was sitting there going, gosh, that would be a lot of work, and I didn't have time to do it. But I wonder how we get to those data points, because I think those are kind of important when we look at
I'm sure
it.
it's possible to get the information. Maybe there's somebody at the appraisal district that can supply
Historical value.
historical values, but as
Well,
far.
they have 5-year history, just look it up.
Yeah.
So you can go 5 years.
You can look at it online, but they may have even going back
Yeah,
further.
they do.
Yeah, I think they could tailor it even down, from our discussions we've already had with the president district, they've been fabulous, and they've said, any information you need that we can help with economic development in the county or the city, please let us know.
And Chris, maybe if we can get somebody from TDC to do some of the tax training that we're talking about,
This is their total
maybe
grant over 5 years or whatever.
really
their cumulative total.
hearing what all
This was just their
of
first year's grant.
our
That's why it's
options
coming.
are for the uses of, I know that we can do
That was
infrastructure, I know we can do job training, I know we can do primary jobs. So maybe during that tax training, that's an opportunity for us to hear from somebody, hey, in times when you're tight with employment, what are things we can turn our attention to that can continue help building tax base or.
Right. And that's one of the things I was really hoping from our new specialized legal team as well, to answer some of those specific questions. Hey, are we allowed to do this? Hey, are we allowed to do that?
Well, and from talking to that guy, he has the background.
So I think we've
Because I
got
think he
several
was
questions on the
highly
table now
involved
that
in
we don't know if we can find.
a lot of the enforcement stuff that was discussed through the AG's office.
Absolutely.
Because kind of at the end of the day, if we say, for instance, that, hey, we don't have the workforce here, we may have to shift our advertising, we may have to shift the shows that we go to, we may have to shift a lot of those things and say, what we got to do is we got to figure out a way to get more people here. We got to get more workers here. We already have the jobs. We got jobs we need to fill.
Housing.
And housing.
Okay, one more question. Does
So if they learn they can fly in and fly out cheaper than buy here.
That's a good point.
Does this exclude capital investment
COVID,
grants?
operate remotely.
No, that would be in those job train, those, the job creation. So those are, I kind of call it job creation.
Well, I was looking at, because I know our grant from Sarah was 20 million and it's still here at 3.9.
That's only what's been expensed.
These are the
Yeah,
actual.
This is what we've actually paid out.
Yeah, these are dollars paid out.
Yeah, but we only paid them out 2 million.
It's in there.
Yeah, but it says.
Comment, you know, I'm sitting there keying in.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that I'm looking at this.
Chairman. In the job creation, yes.
Yeah, I've been writing as quick as I could. I am injured. And a lot of these items we're discussing, obviously none of them you're taking votes or anything on, so y'all tape record this, right? Yeah, we certainly want to get a copy of this and compile the questions you have so we can, from a staff standpoint, come back to you and give you our opinion.
What I'd like to do is I will email you guys the whole, it's a Google sheet that I did all this on. It needs to be checked. I mean, I went through it and double checked it once, but it needs to be checked. But you'll see all the, you'll see all the raw lines that I took off the audit report.
Yeah.
And kind of went through it. But I think it does. I think, if we could add some additional data, maybe the tax value, maybe the job creation numbers and payroll numbers, it would give us a little bit more of a complete picture.
Hey, Jeff, you mentioned that the ones that didn't do so well, the telemarketing companies, but in that same period, that we brought in 2 power companies, power distribution, electric companies, whatever. And I think that Family Dollar Distribution
Yes.
is there.
Yeah, they're on there.
Which
And
is,
they're still here.
All 3 of those still here.
yeah, they're on here, yeah.
Okay.
And they're down. Family Dollar was in what year? I saw it on here.
Well, and that's what this is, I think this is about too, is seeing, we've had some really good successes throughout all this. And we've had some, didn't work out so good. Nobody's going to hit 100%. So this is more of just kind of, I think it's great data, and I thank you, Jeff, for putting it all together to get us thinking about different ways to do things and how to shift as our economy changes.
The more strategic our actions are, the better we are.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we did at one time do a little bit of trying to recruit workforce into the area. Christy was big on that one, on that campaign also.
I think that our problem there always ends up coming back to housing.
Housing, exactly.
That is the chicken and the egg, it
That's
seems
how we ended
like.
up with that $5 million reserve. that we
Yeah,
never
it
could
was
make
that we
work.
were trying
We never could make it
to
work.
accomplish, and we've never figured out how to tackle that problem.
Well, that's actually one other thing that I've got on my list for attorneys that have the specialty in economic development. One of my top others is workforce housing. How under our structure can we do this, especially with us funding everything on the backside? If you build it, then we'll come back and reward you. That's what kind of makes it hard. And from everything that Jill's told me, this housing, really they need the funding on the front side to help get people into the house. So that's the question for that legal team of, is there a way in the guidelines that we can do that?
Well, the paying in arrears is our strategy. That's not something that's something that this body decided to do that.
Keeps us from having.
Well, and I think,
Yeah.
and I
That may
think
be something we need to shift because of economic conditions like we talked about.
And I think the other part of that too is we heard about impact fees and stuff like that. I really don't like the idea of charging home builders impact fees. They again get passed along in the form of higher housing costs that we then try to incentivize and provide for affordable housing. It seems like there's some things that we do collectively
Take it away from it there.
that we just work against each other. And I think we've got to have those conversations with the city and with others to just say, we may need to relick this thing and come up with a better way to do this.
Okay, our attorney's getting
that's going to be another day for another argument.
Well, for the second time, and I know these beautiful people are enthralled in our conversation. They're loving it. They don't want to go anywhere because they'd rather sit right here than do anything else. But do we any questions on that presentation that Mr. Russell put together?
very good.
And thank you, Jeff, for putting that in there. I think it's very, very good. It'll be good for us to look at. Okay, with that being said, I don't see any reason for us to go into executive session. Does anybody have any reason for that today? Wonderful. With no other business before the Odessa Development Corporation, can I entertain a motion?
Well, you want to do citizens non-agenda items?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Number 12, please, sir.
Man, I'm just like, skip ahead. So, yes, again, this is an open forum. At this point in time, if anybody has any comments that they would like to make on any non-agenda items, we would entertain that. Going once, going twice, okay. Hearing none, I've got to start.
And then number
following this
13,
agenda,
don't
man.
forget 13.
Upcoming, okay, there's two things here we want to talk about.
Yeah.
I got to start looking at the agenda a little more. I'm just having so much fun. So our scheduled next ODC board meeting is April the 13th at 2 p.m. But I've got a question, and then I've always kind of wondered about this, and then actually Jeff brought it up the other day too, is 2 p.m. a good time for everybody? It's kind of in the middle of the day, and one of the thoughts was, would it be better to shift our meetings more towards the end of the day so that you get a kind of a full day before you come to the meeting, and then you get to, and then maybe you don't have to go back to work?
I mean, you know, I have to go back to work anyway, so it doesn't matter what time you
It's
shut
perfect
down.
for me because it's right before my nap or right after. I agree.
I'm working to get where he's at. You're already there, Mr. Cleaver?
I'm there.
You're already there. Okay, well, we just wanted to kind of open that up. You know, would a morning be better? Would an later afternoon be better? Would you like it right here at 2? Do we need to move it more closer to 1 so it's right after lunch? You know, for me as a business owner, it is a little tough in that sometimes I go, run to lunch, and then run right back to the office for an hour, 30 minutes, then I run back up to here.
It's hard, but I don't know what would be better.
That's kind of the deal is suggestions.
I also, I mean, if you've got a little one at home, you've also got to figure out school pickup, supper.
I say you just donate the children to another family and move on.
I've thought about it, and I can't get any takers.
At the time, I was worried about it.
I'm fine with it.
You okay where it's at? You guys okay where it's at?
It works for me now.
Okay, excellent. So are we, everybody good for April 13th, 2 p.m.? Yep. Fantastic. Okay. Did I forget any other agenda items?
Now number 14.
Now number 14. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion from Ms. second from Dr. Kurt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you guys so much for your time.